Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. This is our leadership conversations with Laura Gleason and myself, Kristen Wilson, and we're happy to be back talking about our company belief system, which is our WI4C2TES, is as Laura's so well displaying in her background. And today we are on the second T, which is trust. And we're going to have a conversation around what that belief means in our world, in our job, in our market center, in our company. Trust begins with honesty. Laura, when you hear that, what comes to mind for you?
So thank you, Kristen, I immediately jump to the term fiduciary. And I actually pulled up a definition of fiduciary, which I'm going to read in a sec, but I want to start out with this. I firmly believe that we get the honor when we're working as a real estate agent for a buyer, a seller. We have the honor of getting to be their trusted advisor. That's really what we are. We're the trusted advisor working with our clients to help them be their project manager as they move through a transaction to either buy or sell property. And we have a fiduciary duty. We learn that from the very beginnings of when we go to real estate school, and we learn what it means to be an agent, to have agency. And so I think back to my very beginnings in real estate, over 23 years ago, of learning what it meant to be a realtor and have a higher level of care that's associated with what I do. So the definition of fiduciary that I pulled up is a fiduciary is a person or organization that acts on behalf of another person or persons, putting their client's interests ahead of their own, with a duty to preserve good faith and trust. Being a fiduciary thus requires being both bound legally and ethically to act in the other's best interests. Isn't that a great definition?
Really great.
And we happen to have, this is actually one of my favorite pages of the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. On page 96, Gary talks about the difference between being a fiduciary and a functionary in the real estate transaction. And I love that part. A functionary is someone who's a part of the transaction, but they are more of like, it might be the home inspector or the transaction coordinator. They're helping assist. They don't have that fiduciary responsibility that the real estate agent has by taking on a legal and ethical agency relationship with the client. And so in Gary's column, which I'll kind of show you, it's columns. Oh, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but it's columns in the book on page 96. When he talks about what a fiduciary is, he has 18 points. And he says the fiduciary responsibility is high level, high relationship, accepts high responsibility, masters high skill, perceives information, anticipates needs, interprets data, big picture viewpoint, advises and consults, is self-directed, maximum legal responsibility, partner, owns the result, educates and guides, involved in decision-making, uses judgment and intuition, irreplaceable, and highly paid. And I love all of those because it reminds us of we're in this business that, I feel that this is a faith-based business, and it's very much about trust and being honest, because we don't get paid until the end, until we've carried out that duty of that higher level of care that is our trust and honesty, fiduciary responsibility to our client. And when we've carried that fully out, we see the benefits by getting paid at the end of a transaction. Isn't that amazing? And the other thing I want to do one other thing, and then Kristen, I'm sure you have a bunch of things you want to add, and maybe your take is completely different from mine. But I also asked our reviewing broker, Kate, to pull up the agency form for Oregon. And I want to remind everybody, it's really important. We use these forms all the time, and sometimes we just quickly glance over them. The agency relationship form is something that everyone, I remember when my first broker went over that form with me and taught me about it and taught me about that responsibility of being the agent. And there's some really amazing things in here. And I would encourage everyone to read their agency form again, and just remember what that responsibility is. Some of the things that are on here are to deal honestly and in good faith, to disclose material facts known and not apparent or readily ascertainable to a party. It says to exercise reasonable care and diligence, to account in a timely manner, to be loyal, to disclose in a timely manner, to advise, to maintain confidential information. There's so many amazing fiduciary trust and honesty statements in our agency form. And I just would say, I love our belief system. I love our WI4C2TES. And the fact that the word trust is part of it is something I'm so proud of, Kristen, because I am proud to be someone's trusted advisor in this relationship.
Yeah, I love that. When I love the direction you went with that, which is totally different than what I was thinking, and so important. It's probably one of the most important things we can remember in this business. And I want to talk about what that doesn't mean, right?
Oh, great. Okay.
First, and I have a couple other thoughts, but two things in the fiduciary that I see as a common misconception that it doesn't mean. And one is, it doesn't mean we take on the buyer's due diligence.
Yeah, true.
So as a fiduciary, stay in your lane and explain to your clients what buyer's due diligence means. When we deal with mediation and litigation around transactions, even when the agent has done everything right, oftentimes where they can be found at fault is because they took on the due diligence responsibility that wasn't theirs to take on, and now they're liable for it.
Yeah.
We are not contractors. We are not, inspectors. We are not roofers. We do not know about, we are not skilled in making an assessment to structural things. And when we start to, or, city zoning or allowances or things, when we start to interject ourselves in those places, that's where we've crossed the line, and now we can be responsible for that. So it does not mean taking on the due diligence. And also, it does not mean we pass down negative from one side to the other. And by negative, I don't mean bad news in that, like what will be or not be negotiated. I mean our perception of how the other side is responding, reacting, having emotions around it.
Yeah.
It's not part of the fiduciary. And those are the two areas I see as common mistakes that don't help in the negotiations and then protect us as professionals. So one of the things I love, a lot of us are in bold. A lot of you guys are in bold. A lot of the country's in bold right now, written by one of my mentors, Diana Kokoska. And she always said, people do business with people they like and trust. So first of all, I like to remind everyone that we have an opportunity with every single client to build trust and to earn the trust. It's not always automatic. And it is a skill. The second thing is putting yourself in the client's shoes for a minute. And what is that expectation of trust on their part? And something you said stands out to me is trusted advisor. So where I'm going with this is I see often that agents, as a fiduciary or trusted advisor, does cross over into some of the lanes that aren't ours, like commenting on siding and commenting on structure and things like that, that we aren't the experts in. That's not our lane. Rather than like deferring that and letting the experts handle that, because we think we need to know all those things. We don't. But the other piece where it can show up, and this is by accident. And before I say it, I just want to say, I don't believe anyone in this business, and certainly in our company, would ever purposefully be dishonest. I don't believe that at all. I don't see that at all. I don't see that with co-brokers in the Valley. I just don't. And also I'm not suspicious that way. But what I see or have seen from experience that can be a mistake is the trusted advisor, their fiduciary responsibility to be honest about pricing.
Yeah.
To be honest and be trusted to have a very open and frank conversation about price reductions.
Mm-hmm.
And it only comes because they so want to be liked. And I get that.
Yeah.
However, the job is also to be trusted and a trusted advisor, and it's our fiduciary responsibility.
Yes.
And when our clients hire us, and here's a way that we can make it easy. Like, here's a little bit of a tip that I use that's an easy button. In the seller consultation, you can actually get their permission to have these very honest conversations about the pricing outside of what they wish or hope or want to get for the home. And also a very frank and honest conversation about condition and about what will be perceived by the market, right? And all we have to do is say, you know, there you can find quite a few agents that might tell you what you want to hear. Do I have your permission to always just be honest with you about your home in the market?
That's great. I love it.
No seller says no to that.
Right.
You're setting them up to say yes, because nobody's going to say no, please lie to me. And I would say, do you want me to tell you the truth, or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear?
Yeah.
Because we're going to have a very frank conversation about pricing right now in this market. We're going to have a very honest conversation about condition and buyer perception. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. I always added, my job is to help you get, not just to help you put your home on the market, but to help you get your home sold, your property sold. I always added that part.
Yeah. And so, you know, I don't think any agent purposefully is being dishonest by that. However, holding ourselves to that higher fiduciary level and that trusted advisor level, we can be prepared to go in and tell the truth and be perfectly honest with them, even though it might mean they're a little disappointed, even though they might mean that, yeah, but in reality, those conversations don't have to be hard. And you can set yourself up for success by upfront letting them know too, we're going to be price watching. We're going to be watching this market. We're going to be watching the buyer's response to the house and making adjustments along the way. That's where you actually build more trust. So I want to say, when you're looking at this from a fiduciary perspective, which is the first way we should be looking at it, right, is what would you want? Right? And go in there with that same perspective and create that bond and relationship through those open and honest conversations up front. And it makes it much easier. I think the other thing is, you know, I love that you said higher level of care. And I think for us that it's easy for us to have a perception, because we do this every day, of what that is and what that means. However, consumers may have a different perspective. So another tip for that is just ask them.
Right. What does that mean to you? Yeah.
Yeah. What would a higher level of care? It's my commitment, not only my fiduciary responsibility, also my commitment to you to bring a higher level of care. And just so we're on the same page, Laura, I'd like to know what that would look like from your perspective. And then deliver that.
And I would go further and say, in that conversation, and a higher level of care for me means ... And you stayed out. Here's, when I talk about a higher level of care, here's what I'm going to do for you. Is there anything you would like me to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the last one, where there's a gap, like a perception gap, and that can break trust really easily with clients, is our communication systems. And we talked about communication before on another week. We don't need to go into all of that. there's a perception gap. Well, when we're not setting the standard and expectation
Right.
of what the communication process and system will look like, then all of a sudden they can feel like it's not being delivered, and that trust can be broken.
Right. Yep.
So we can skill up, we can level up in these areas of creating trust, building trust, earning the trust, and doing expectations and standards, and having conversations that set the groundwork or a foundation for trust all the way through a transaction.
Right. Yeah.
And oftentimes when a transaction go completely right all the way through and get to the end, and if you haven't experienced this, sometime you will, the client can sometimes not be that grateful. And usually it's tied back to some time along the process that some trust was broken.
Right.
And you didn't even know it. And it's not that you did anything wrong. It's just that the perception gap created that. So I think it's a really important thing to build into your process of working with your clients, and how you maintain the trust relationship. You
Yeah.
learned it in the beginning, right? I love this too. When we were at this training in Seattle, they were talking about how the contract that your clients sign, it's an integrity agreement.
It is. Yeah.
When you sit down at the buyer or the seller consultation and they sign to agree to work with you, they're signing an agreement based on everything you said you deliver. And it's an integrity agreement on our part to then follow through and deliver those things.
Yeah. You know, what we're really selling in real estate is, why should someone work with me versus another realtor? And when they sign that agreement with us, they've signed an agreement saying, I chose to work with you because of your integrity, because I trust you, right?
Yeah, I trust everything you said today. Great. I'm going to go forward.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of an art and a science to work through that conversation, to lay that groundwork, to make sure that as you're going through the whole entire process with them, that you keep that trust connection. And honestly, that's how you get referrals later.
Yeah.
It really is. And I do want to say, we have an opportunity to, as a leadership team, to share that our highest and best level of care for you guys is that we keep that trust with you. And I just want to say, for everyone in our company, if there's ever a time where you feel like maybe that trust has been broken, please come and have an open conversation with us, because we certainly want to work through that, whether it was communication or a misunderstanding or perception. Either way,
Absolutely.
that's our heart and that's our goal. And you should be able to trust the people that you're trusting with your business.
Yes. I want to add one more thing, Kristen. That was a beautiful ending. And I want to add one more thing. There are times in our profession, whether it be an agent comes to me and we're having a really tough, difficult conversation, or when you're having a client who's having a difficult conversation with you, maybe you're on the phone with them and they're venting to you and they are upset. That means they trust you. If they are venting to you, it means that real estate transactions involve a lot of money, and there can be heightened stress levels.
Yeah.
And if they're having those tough conversations with you, it means they trust you. If they're not having them, they're having them with someone else, which means they're not trusting you. So remember, during those times when you're having a conversation and maybe you get off, you end that conversation and you're feeling like, gosh, that person doesn't like me or whatever. If they're trusting you with that intensity, or they're sharing that with you, they do trust you. And they're venting to you because they do trust you. If they're not venting to you, they're venting to someone else, which means you haven't built that trust.
That's a very good point. I love that. Very good. Okay. Thank you guys. Have an amazing week.
Bye. Thank you.